All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Last summer began with tremendous promise for the Philadelphia 76ers as they entered that offseason with a clean slate. And the reason why, Joel Embiid was the only player that the Sixers had under contract. We saw, it basically gave the opportunity for team president Daryl Morey to be off to the races, to go out there and give head coach Nick Nurse what he thought was going to be a championship team. Of course, first things first, they re-signed Tyrese Maxey to that big deal, well deserved. And they started filling in the spots. And of course, the biggest signing that the 76ers had in free agency was when they brought in Paul George. And okay, it's one of those where if there was ever a team that needed to go out there and push the reset button, it's these Philadelphia 76ers because this season has been a disaster from the word go. The Sixers are 23 and 45 through 68 games so far. There's not going to be any playoffs for Philadelphia. They're going to lose 50 plus games for the first time since 2017. All right. And this was a no go season from the jump. Why? Because unfortunately, Joel Embiid has been injured a lot. You know, he was injured to start this season. He's only appeared in 18 games. His season is done. And it's unfortunate because we're talking about a guy who, when healthy, is one of the more promising players and greater or better players in the NBA. And then, of course, you bring in a guy like Paul George. And to me, Paul George flat out suckered the Sixers organization. It's one of those things where last summer, Paul George felt disrespected by the offer that he received from the Los Angeles Clippers, which led to him testing the waters of free agency. And of course, the Sixers and Daryl Morey would drink the Kool-Aid on PG-13 as he signed that 4-year deal for $212 million. And of course, Paul George has not delivered during his time in Philadelphia. He only played in 41 games this season. His season is done as he's out with an injury as well. But even prior to the injury, Paul George was having one of the worst seasons of his career. He was averaging 16.2 points per game, his lowest point per game output since 2012, which was his second year in the league. And like I said before, Paul George just suckered the Sixers. Why? Because last year we saw Paul George appear in 74 games for the Clippers. But you got to go back to 2019 prior to that to find the last time that Paul George appeared in more than 60 games in any season in the NBA. It's one of those where it's interesting where whenever a contract is up, all of a sudden guys are healthy, they're all in, you name it. And then of course once they get that new deal, it's right back to the same old thing. And this is the category that you have to put Paul George in. You look at it, like I said, the Sixers began this season with championship aspirations, but they are steamrolling towards the draft lottery. And in my opinion, I know that Paul George still has 3 years left on this deal at a hefty clip. We're talking about a guy the next couple of years who's going to earn more than $50 million, and he's got that player option for 2020, 2027, 2028 at more than $56 million. If I'm the 76ers, I'm going out there and I'm moving heaven and earth to try to find a way to trade Paul George over the summer. This cannot continue. I think what Philadelphia needs to do going forward. They've got to realize that Tyrese Maxey is their future and they have to build around him. I said this last summer. Okay, you can go and check in the archives. Paul George in Philadelphia was not going to work. His mentality was not going to fit in that city, first and foremost. And then on top of that, you look at Paul George at this point of his career. He's 34 years old. He's a guy that is more of a name at this point than anything else. He's not going to be, and he wasn't going to be an impact player for the 76ers. I said that from day one, and I am not surprised by what happened here. We're talking about a 34-year-old player that was looking to get the bag once more in his NBA career. And guess what? He succeeded. Paul George is a guy who could simply care less about winning, and it's showing. All right. So, like I said, it is time for the 76ers to go out there and start over. And at the end of the day, they have to find a way to move on from this contract. This season began with so many big aspirations for Philly. It has not worked out, and it's unfortunate. You got a Sixers fan base. They've lived through the process, this, that, and the third, the whole Ben Simmons fiasco. They let Jimmy Butler walk, you name it. And they were hopeful that this was the year that things were going to come full circle, and clearly they have not. It's another season to forget in Philadelphia. A guy like Paul George, like I said, he came in with a lot of hype, but at the end of the day, at this point in his career, all that Paul George is a name. And I think the 76ers are finding this out the hard way. There's a reason why the Clippers didn't want to go out there and give him this deal. And this is another reason as well why I think the Sixers should move on from Paul George. If you look at his career, every step of the way, regardless of the team, when he leaves the team, that team gets better. And I guarantee you, the Clippers would love to do that trade over again, where they gave Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to Oklahoma City, and we've seen the star that SGA has flourished into in OKC, and of course the Clippers at that point were going all in, trying to make Kawhi Leonard happy because they thought he was going to bring them a championship, and they brought in Paul George. The rest is history. OKC got better. You look at the Clippers and the way that Terrence Mann is playing this year, and Norman Powell in Philadelphia, in Los Angeles with the Clippers. And I think if the 76ers are smart enough and they move on from PG-13 this summer, they'll be in a better spot too. PG-13, plain and simple, suckered the Sixers. They gave them the bag, and now they have absolutely nothing to show for it but frustration and a lot of L's in the loss column. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, and I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.